Good morning, everyone, and welcome to PFY Live, our weekly podcast here for Partnership for Youth. Amy Cummings, Executive Director and your host, and I have with me this morning Brady Borslien from the Diocese of Fargo, North Dakota. Welcome, Brady.
Hi, Amy. Thank you for having me on today.
Oh, so excited to have you back. For those of you who joined us a few weeks ago, we had Brady on our program, our show, to talk about their middle school event that they hosted in October. And we wanted to bring Brady back to share a little bit about his own conversion story and how he got to where he is in life. So what is your title at the Diocese of Fargo there?
Yeah, so I am the Director of Youth and Young Adult Ministries. So I oversee, any type of youth outreach, whether elementary, middle school, high school, and then try to, offer events and opportunities for young adults to get together, hang out, and be in community with one another.
So important, right? Our young church needs to be evangelized and discipled, and that's a big job.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So my previous work was in the Diocese of Crookston, which was right next door. And I thought that was spread out because it's a rural diocese too, but this place is just huge.
Yeah. Speaking of Crookston, I mean, I know we just commented on it, but Bishop Cousins was appointed there in the last month here and then installed, I think, on December 6th. I mean, to be completely honest, I was a little sad. We're a little sad to lose him. I mean, happy he didn't go too far, but how do you feel about that appointment?
I mean, I've had a lot of people from like the Archdiocese or other dioceses text me that they were sad. They were hoping that like there's some other vacancies that they were hoping that he would go there, but we're pretty excited. Like after I showed my wife the email or like the Facebook post about it, she asked if we could move back to the Diocese of Crookston, just because both my wife and I were Net alum and we know him, and so she's like, well, can we just switch to like this church so that we can be part of the Diocese of Crookston, so we can kind of claim a little ownership of Bishop too. And but no, we're excited to have him up in the area. He's a great shepherd, and he's going to do phenomenal things for Crookston. Even we were listening to his installation mass, and he closed his homily with something very personal to like the area with sugar beets, and I thought that was a very profound statement that he made.
Nice. He has been a great shepherd for us here and as an auxiliary bishop in the Archdiocese of St. Paul, Minneapolis, but didn't go too far away. So we're blessed with that. So as I said, Brandy, we really want to delve into your kind of faith journey, sharing it from, let's start with middle school. Like, what was your faith like as a middle schooler?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. So for the most part, like I was thinking about that. I was praying about that. I was, go over my time as a middle school student, but I didn't really have an active faith life. So the biggest thing was that I was a Protestant. I was a Missouri Synod Lutheran. So I recall some of those, like the training, the formation that I went through there, the confirmation classes, getting out early, walking to the Lutheran church there to do my class. But that was to the extent of what my middle school faith life was like. There wasn't, we weren't active at home as a Christian family. We went to Christmas, Easter. My grandparents on my father's side were more devout than on my mother's side, and so they were encouraging us to go. My dad would have loved us to go more, but as typical kids, we made up every excuse in the book, like, oh, I got a shower, it's going to take me 30 minutes, we can't go to church today, kind of thing. So eventually, they just gave up, per se, like battle. They never were able to really push us to go.
Yeah, so interesting, right? I think especially today when we see the studies that show us that middle school kids, are certainly disengaging from their faith in those years. And then as they get older, even walking away from their Catholic faith. And I think middle school is so important. I think it's a tough time too. I think it's a tough time for young people. But I think it's also a real blessed time to go deeper into your faith if you have that support from home and then your parish and your church. When did you first encounter the Lord?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, so you're right. Like middle school, just to kind of carry on what you said there, like
Yeah.
in the middle school, it is very interesting how like those are the very formative years. And I was thinking too about when I was in middle school, it was 1997, 98, 99, where youth ministry wasn't a big thing. Evangelization to the youth, like it was still somewhat fairly new. But yeah, we didn't have a lot of outreach done at our church, which isn't to a fault of their own. But yeah, we just didn't do much. But so how I encountered the Lord, like it's a very unique thing. Like I said, like we came from a very, very like nominal Christian family, Christmas, Easter. But the big thing, so I grew up in Crookston, small community, but I was very blessed at like at a young age to be thrusted into a group of people that loved sports. So early on, so my grandpa, kind of the thing that I always talk about is like my grandpa is one of the guys who started the radio station in Crookston. So he loved sports, and so I think just through that, like they lived right across the street from us. So through that and through just wanting to get out of the home, I just really started to get into sports. I played everything, pretty much in those elementary and in those middle school years. Basically the gym was like, I would call it the church for me. Like that's where I spent most of my time, whether it was we were at the basketball on the courts, working on our game. We were always out at the college at UMC in Crookston because one of our classmates' dad worked out there, so we would go out there quite often. And he was a great role model and a great coach for us too, that helped push us. So that was pretty much what consumed every weekend, every day, every breath was sports. And it was very interesting because like I said, I didn't really think too much about the Lord, but something that was kind of profound in my middle school years, that kind of set the stage of this kind of conversion, is my grandmother was diagnosed with scleroderma. And so it's just a very debilitating disease. And it was the first time I encountered like hardship. Like it was the first time that I really was faced with like death was coming to someone I love. And because I used to believe we were robots, because there was a movie that came out called Bicentennial Man. And I used to think like, oh yeah, you'll just replace our parts, we'll be fine. But eventually, like my grandma got sick. She got worse. She got more like restricted in what she could do. And one day, my grandma was at home by herself, and it was kind of like on hospice care or comfort care, and she had soiled it herself. And no one was home. I was in middle school, and I remember like she called me and she said like, I need your help. And I just walked over there and I cleaned her up, cleaned off the sheets, put her back on bed. And I didn't really think too much about it, but I think that was a starting foundation of wanting to love and to serve others, which will come a little bit later. But so again, faith, not very much into my high school years. Still, just the sports were the thing. Grandpa was still pushing me in sports, sitting on the sidelines, like and doing all of that. But he got my sophomore year, he got diagnosed with cancer, and I remember like that was difficult because we had. I wouldn't have acknowledged it at the time, but my family was struggling. There was just within the marriage, there was a lack of communication. There was just some woundedness between the two, and so when my grandpa got sick, that was very, very hard. Just like any of us, like when we encounter death, especially to those that we love, we tend to go like, well, why does this happen?
Right.
So my grandpa progressively got worse, and I remember. It was about 2 a.m. in September, like that my dad came up to my room and he just woke me up and said like, hey, you got to go across the street and say goodbye because grandpa's going to die. Both my parents are nurses, so they've been around death often. So like, they kind of saw the signs and symptoms coming. And so I just got up, I walked over there, my uncle was there, my sister and her boyfriend, my family, they were all in tears. And I remember walking into his room. And I just remember like, him there and like, he wasn't really moving. He could say a few things and he took my hand, he put it on his chest and he said, just always remember me when you play your sports. And I remember that, that was like a very crushing moment because again, this was like I said, there was like a woundedness in our home, and it was through him and my grandmother. They were so she had the scleroderma, and they were they were ones that were very supportive and there for us on our well-being. And
Mhm.
so losing him was kind of like that final straw. And
Mm.
so I had this little image of, like, that Jesus knocking at the door, that
Yes.
cliche one that kids have. So I had that in my room, and I looked at that and I just said, like, all right, like, God, like, I don't know you. You're here, I guess, but like, I'm done with you. Like, all you do is you bring me hardship, you bring me pain, you bring me sorrow. So just, stay out of my life. I really like rebelled. I pushed back. Like, we didn't talk about church again. Like, my family had its struggles. We had our struggles. We were all trying to like navigate this. So there wasn't really a lot of hope in
Mm.
us. And so sophomore year, junior year, all that stuff, we were really developing in sports. We were good. We were very, very good in football and basketball and soccer. Like, we were just all over. The town was buzzing about us. But inside, like, I was, again, this brokenness. And so trying to do the medication of what you could. Small town. So you go out, you drink, you go out, you party. You do all like the things that I don't want to say like a typical high schooler would do, but those things that like are bad. Again, those self-medicating things. And I remember I met this girl, and she became one of my really good friends, but she was kind of one of my, like, an emo girl with me. Like, we were like the, like, oh, we hate life with everything. And it was true. We were struggling. And one time, so my junior, that all happened. One time though, going into my senior year, in the summer, her and I like hung out, and she knew the pains that I was going through, and I knew the pains that she was going through. And she showed me like her wrist, and she said, like, this is a way that you can make pain, the emotional pain of what you're feeling, physical.
Mm.
And I remember that going, I was confused again about like, well, what does this mean? So like, it just kind of like ruminated in my head through that summer. And at the start of my senior year, so one thing I forgot to mention that was really like impactful into this conversion, when I was about 6 years old, my mom, she like fell in our home, like she like collapsed. So an ambulance came, took her away. We thought it was just one thing, like a reaction to medication. Well, when I
Yeah.
was senior, so all this stuff happened. So these were my mom's parents that passed away. This girl has told me, like, you can make pain physical. So I started thinking of that. I was very broken. I was very, all these sad things. My mom ended up being like arrested. It was a very interesting situation because like we were at the height, at the height of everything. We were good in football. We were like ranked number 2 in state for basketball. We were, we're just living this like life that every, high schooler wanted.
Yeah.
And so my mom goes, she's like, I'm going to go grocery shopping. And it was like 6:30. I was like, well, Mom, you never go grocery shopping without me. So that's weird. And then my dad comes home, and he works. I knew what his shifts were. It was, the 2 to 10 p.m.s. And I was just like, why is Dad home? And so
Yeah.
he's like, we need to have a little conversation. And so my mom was, like I said, a nurse, and she was struggling with her own wounds, her own brokenness.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
she would take medication from charts, and she would slip and take them. She would change charts. And so she was self-medicating through work.
Mm.
It was problematic when I was that 6-year-old, because that's what happened. She had kind of overdosed a titch.
Oh.
And so that was something that she carried on throughout my high school. And so she gets arrested. And so again, we have this broken family. I lost my grandparents. My own family is broken. I'm supposed to be at the peak of my life, but right now it's crumbling.
Oh,
So I get
goodness.
more and more angry with the Lord.
Yeah.
Like I said, I didn't ever really acknowledge him, but before every game I would pray. I would do an Our Father, but I would say, like, God, like, this isn't for you. This is for my grandpa. Just make sure he gets the message. So this all culminated with just not being able to understand, not being able to say, like, well, if this is the best it's going to be, then why continue? Like, my
Mm.
family's broken. I've got no support. I'm just hurting. And this girl told me, like, you can make it physical. This girl, like, really said, like, this is what the best thing you can do. So then I started exploring those self-harm things, those self-harm techniques. which eventually culminated in just a night of chaos where I attempted to take my own life. One night I got back from a party. I remember just being really sad, saying like I shouldn't be doing this, and I ended up going to the bathroom and doing a bunch of things. And then a couple hours later, I woke up just like thinking like this was it. Like I felt like my body had the chills. I had this, and this, and I was in the bathroom. And so I walked into my parents' room, and I don't know, I just said like because I knew I didn't want that, but I just was trying to understand the pain that I was.
Yeah. Yes.
And so I told my parents, I was like, hey, just so you know, I think we should probably go to the hospital. And so we did. And so you asked the question of like this conversion moment. So the starting point of it came when I was in the hospital, because friends would come in. And I would say to them, like, well, like, I just had a reaction to Tylenol because I got sick my junior year. And it's just all, they all believed it except for my best friend. And he didn't know, I mean, he knew I was going through struggles, but he's just very intuitive. And once all the friends left, he circled back in and he just said, like, you do that again, like, I will personally like hurt you. Like he was letting me know, like, I see what you did and you can't do that. So that got me thinking about like, well, there has to be something. There has to be something more. I'm a graduated high schooler now. I'm going off to college. I got to figure this out. So I started just, for some reason, I was like, if I don't try something else, I'm going to try this again and it's going to work.
Right.
So I started going back to the Protestant church every so often. But so then I went off to college at UND. I was big into going onto networks, into kind of like mirroring people's iTunes accounts into my own computer so I could steal music. So I stole thousands and thousands and thousands of songs, or copied them, but still illegal. But one of the songs that I would take everything, like Christian music, rap music, country music, blue, whatever. I would just listen to it. If I liked it, I kept it. But the big converting moment came from one of the songs I stole was by a guy named Jeremy Camp, the artist. It was a song called like My Desire. And it had this line where it said like, this is my desire. This is my return. This is my desire to be used by you.
Mm-hmm.
And for someone who's wasn't very spiritual, wasn't very like into the church, I was like, okay, what does that mean? Like my desire, like this is my return, like to be used by you. So I started, when I was back in Crookston, I would go to the Protestant church a little more. And then in that next summer, I was invited to play ultimate Frisbee at the Catholic church. And with some of my good buddies, and I was like, great, I'll go beat up on some church punks. Like, good athlete, beating up on the church kids. It'll be good for me. But while I was there, a priest came and he wanted to bless us. So he did, and I stepped out of it because I was like, I don't want it. But then they invited me to adoration in XLT that night, and I said sure, and I went. And there was a keynote talk, there was praise and worship, and then all of a sudden, like, they asked us to kneel, and all my friends were kneeling, or all the church people were. And so they put their like hands up a little bit, and I looked, and I thought, like, this is weird. This is just crazy, because again, not really practicing Protestant. There's Catholics kneeling, singing, whatever. It's a cult.
Yeah, that's just too much.
Yeah, and then they come in with the monstrance and the priest and the altar servers. And at the time, I was just inside. I was just laughing. I was like, "What have I gotten myself into?" But then all of a sudden, the priest placed the monstrance down on the altar, and then I just felt this wave of peace come over me. And it brought me back to those words from Jeremy Camp, like, this is my desire, this is my return, this is my desire to be used by you. So the ultimate conversion like moment was there, like in that moment, like recalling those words, like there's a desire now on my heart, like there's this new hope that I'd never experienced just by gazing upon you. And it is, in a sense, like my return back to this. So now I need to explore. And that's all I've been doing ever since is, that moment has catapulted me to where it is today. And,
so amazing. Like, oh my gosh, like your life is just, I mean, riddled with grief and challenges and just, I mean, I think that I mean, your example is where what a lot of kids struggle with, Catholic kids, right? That
Mhm.
um, they don't have this compass, right? They don't know how to deal with grief or even joy or even,
Right.
identity, all of these things that they're struggling with, and how the Lord used other people and music and your sports and
Mhm.
invitations. Like, oh my gosh, like
Yeah.
amazing.
It was definitely it was looking back on it, just the pieces that the Lord put in my life throughout all of it was wild. Like it's such a great story, and it was it was interesting. It's great to talk about it here too, because then that summer after that, like I just wanted to learn more about the Catholic Church. So I started going to daily mass because, like, it's just old ladies and they're not going to remember you. So you could like sneak in. They just think like, oh, some holy guy. So I could just really discover. And but I eventually got courageous to start going to Sunday mass on my own. But
Mm,
I went to a Steubenville that fall. So that first moment happened in like early summer, and then I went to the Steubenville in the old arena, um, and I remember being very I don't want to say confused, because not Bob, Righteous B was one of the speakers at the time, and he was calling all the people. He said, like, all right, like everyone, take out your Bibles, but don't take out those Protestant Bibles because they don't have all the books. And so then kind of like chuckles started to go across the arena, and here I am as this Protestant going, what? Like, that's rude.
yeah, right.
So I was like, what about me? Like, I'm here, and so it was, but it was overall good because it was in that moment too, just seeing the church a little bit larger, really come to see Jesus and encounter Jesus in the Eucharist. I was like,
Mm,
that was very profound for me at home, and then to actually see it like on a larger scale and to really impact these people more, and even my own group, because we had a group of about, I think, 20 or 30 from Crookston's parish. And just being with them, seeing the joy, seeing the transforming nature of the conference, but also seeing the personal revelations that they were receiving
mm,
was, again, one of those things that I hold on to as those very like life, like flashbulb memories, or things that
yeah,
I'm going to catapult me into more devotion. So
right,
it was
right.
interesting. It was very interesting at the time.
Wow. And we take so much time and energy for all the other details of the things that we do, right? Whether it's a middle school event or a high school conference, and yet we know, I mean, we even though we might not hear hundreds of stories, but your story, other many young people have shared stories of that encounter, that
Mhm.
moment of encounter with the Lord, whether it's during Holy Mass and reception of our Lord, body, blood, soul, divinity, and Holy Communion, or his presence in the monstrance on Saturday night for Eucharistic adoration. And just by having just a little bit of grace, like their hearts opened a little bit, right? And
Mhm.
the Lord's presence there, he does the work in a soul that we've no idea, right? I'm sure none of your friends knew what happened to you or how you felt in that moment of Eucharistic adoration, right? At the
Right,
Catholic
right,
Church, right?
right. Well, yeah, no, they didn't, because again, I didn't even know what I was truly searching for. Like, I mean, I knew that this is the route I wanted to pursue, but the way that the Lord just really hounded me is something like the friends didn't know. But the great thing, I was surrounded by a lot of people that answered all of my questions and walked with me on the journey. It wasn't just like a, here's this event, I encountered Jesus, now I go figure it out. Like,
Right.
I was relentless on seeking out answers, asking the priest this, asking these adults this, asking this person, who eventually became my sponsor. Like, I was talking to him almost daily, like, what does this mean? Why do you do this? Or even like my friends, some of my classmates and some of the schoolmates, we were together like almost like every day. And that was very foundational to who I am, because I don't believe I would be who I am today if it wasn't for just that community
Mhm,
aspect.
mhm,
That idea of like the
mhm.
village that raised the person.
And we know how important that is in our faith journey,
Mhm.
right, Brady? We know how important it is to have other people journeying with us, accompanying with us in our journey of faith. And I know that's what youth ministers do day in and day out.
Mhm.
And you did youth ministry in a parish for a long time, right?
Yep.
Um,
About 12, 11 years.
where did the passion for choosing that as your, career, how did that come to you? What was the inspiration behind that?
Yeah, it's interesting because I never thought working in a church was the direction that I wanted to go. I just wanted to be in love with Jesus and to pursue him. But when I started going to like those frisbees, it was every Wednesday in Crookston. And when I was hanging out with these friends, when I was going on these trips, or when I was going to this rally, like people started saying like, wow, like you're kind of like an influence, you're a leader. And so just kind of coupling that with the kind of the role in sports that I had and my friends had on me. I just started pondering. Someone said to me, a guy named Ray Holcraft said to me, he said like you would be great in a church. So I remember being in a hotel room with him one night. We were taking some Catholic classes, and he's like, I'm going to do whatever I can to get you into a parish and stuff like that. And
Mm.
I was still in college. I went to college in Nebraska, and he had called me one day and he's just like, oh, there's this church, do you want to give him a call, this priest wants you. And I was like, but I'm graduating. Like I thought psychology was the route that I was going to go. I had already planned on like what I was going to do after my undergrad. So then I called this priest, and it was great. It was a lot of fun. Good conversation, and it's one of those great memories that I'm going to cherish with me too, because I had like really long hair and I was just kind of like a punk in college. But the priest, his name is Monsignor Tim, invited me to their staff Christmas party on my drive home. And when he showed me off, in a sense, to the staff at this party, they thought I was a homeless person, because Monsignor didn't really tell them like, "Hey, here's our new employee," right away. He just like opened the door like, "Hey, here's Brady," and I had like this tattered outfit on because I'd been driving from Nebraska, and they're all dressed really nice, and I had like again long hair, and so I was like, "Hi, I'm not homeless." Um, but so I never, it just kind of like fell into the lap. I wasn't expecting to, but like I said, Ray's influence was very big
Mm.
in my life, and even his brothers influence, Mark. uh, they instilled like that I could do this. They believed in me, and had confidence that I could really help out a parish and even help out a church.
And there again, right? The influence of other people for them to courageously step forward, but them for them to see you, to see your gifts, to just encourage or invite you to pursue that. So
Mhm.
important in our lives, right? And for us to listen to that inspiration, because we never know what's going to happen. I mean, look at the life that you've been called to live and had the blessing to live, right? Because of saying yes to that invitation.
Right. And the beautiful thing about it all too is like like it was filled with drama, it was filled with sorrow and hardships. And sometimes I think we look at a conversion to Christ, or even a reversion or anything, when we start getting involved, like it's going to make everything 100% better. Like
Oh,
that, this is going to be restored, this is going to be restored, like it's going to go to this version that I want. And like unfortunately that isn't always the case. And but it, like what is put in there is this hope. Like, so my parents divorced. There's still lots of woundedness and brokenness and division. But what I do have from all of that is I have a higher sense of hope in it. I have a better sense of love and appreciation, and understanding of the sacrifices that they made and the struggles that they potentially went through just through conversations with them. But yeah, so it is very interesting, even though like there's still like woundedness and struggles. Like the Lord is still there, walking us through this journey, and
mm,
strengthening us for like those moments when it can be easily to be despairing, like, oh, like why does this have to be, like why can't you, whatever reason.
right.
But yeah, so no, the Lord has been good. He's been very faithful.
Yes, yes. And the journey's never done, right? We're always on this journey to um become the person, the man or woman that God designed us to be, and to always continue to grow in our faith, right? And always be open to the inspirations of the Holy Spirit, and journey through life, impacting other people along the way. Always working on our own conversion too.
Right, right.
Um, And which leads us to just our final question here in our final couple of minutes together. But we're in this final weeks of Advent here, right? 10 days till Christmas,
Yeah.
9 days till Christmas. Brady, share with us, what have you been doing for Advent, and how are you going to finish these final days strong in intentionally preparing for the Lord's birth?
Yeah. So a couple of things. Yeah, we got, two kids at home. And so we've done some of the like the little things like the Advent wreath and like the little Advent calendars. I mean, our little girl is only 10 months, 9 months, I think it is. So, I mean, she has no comprehension of,
Yeah.
like, hey, look at this. But our son, Asher, he kind of gets it. So every morning, like he wakes up and he asks about it. So along with stuff like that, just being a little bit more intentional and like teaching the season at like nighttime prayer with our boy really has been a beautiful thing. It's been kind of chaotic though, because the wife is in school and she works overnights at the hospital. So we're like ships passing, but we've been able to have these grace-filled moments. So how we're going to finish strong is on a beautiful thing is so the grandparents are going to come and take our kids this weekend. Uh, and it's always a joy when they do that, but it's going to give us the ability to really hone in on our spiritual lives and really
Mm,
we plan to go to confession, we plan to go to adoration, we plan to just like revisit everything and just really have this
mm,
8 weekend in preparation for the coming of the Lord. So we're pretty excited about it.
beautiful, beautiful. God bless grandparents, right?
Yeah, for sure.
um, who give especially families with young children an opportunity to have those moments. And how beautiful, like you're choosing to be so sacramental and intentional about this time that you have together with your wife as you head into these last few days of Advent. And I think it's our little boy's only 5 too, so every year I feel like he participates more and learns more about the seasons, this particular season of Advent and Lent and things too. But um and and then just our example of showing him like how we celebrate with Gaudete Sunday, and now we've got the pink candle lit on the Advent wreath, um and being intentional ourselves about building that domestic church, right?
Mhm.
And helping them to foster their own devotion to the Lord and the saints and Our Lady as we are journeying on the same journey with them. I feel like even with the Steubenville conference, like I feel like the young people teach me so much about myself and about my own faith, and the speakers, sometimes I think they speak directly to me or as much to me as they do to the young people. And I feel that way with my son too. Like, oh, he reminds me, to like, Mom, pray to St. Anthony to find that, or Jesus will help us, just in those little
Right.
moments. I'm like, oh, like, one, I'm so proud that it's sticking, but two, like, I should have been the one to, like, um, well, I just thank you so much for sharing your witness and your testimony. And gosh, just feel privileged to be able to hear the Lord, how the Lord has worked in your life and continues to work in your life, and just blessed with the relationship to work with you, both in the Diocese of Crookston and now in the Diocese of Fargo, and continue to bless young people with our ministries and partnering together, and just bless you and your family in the Easter season, in the Christmas season. Not very Eastery here, as we had so much fog this morning with all of the snow, too. But thank you for being with us this morning. And we just say to our viewers and those who might be listening to this and a replay, thank you so much. We bless you and ask for our Lord's blessings upon you during these final days, and just encourage you and invite you to be intentional of preparing your heart for his coming at Christmas. And join us next week for our PFY Live on Wednesdays every morning at 10 o'clock. Thanks so much.
Thank you.